Hello, my name is Sridhar Rangan. I'm the Festival Director of KASHISH Mumbai International Queer Film Festival, which is having its 12th edition right now. And today we are going to be having this amazing panel discussion, Books to Screen, Lost and Found in Translation. Can screen adaptations of LGBTQ novel stories do justice to them? Or is something lost in translation? We speak to novelists, screenwriters, and filmmakers to understand this beautiful experience of transformation. This panel is supported by Consulate General of Sweden. And the speakers at this panel discussion, strictly in alphabetical order, are JONAS GARDELL, who is a Swedish novelist, playwright, screenwriter, and comedian. In 2013, GARDELL was elected Homo Bi Trans Person of the Year at the Swedish Gaygalan Awards, notably for the book Don't Ever Wipe Tears Without Gloves, which has been turned into a 3-part miniseries. He is openly gay and is married to the famous Swedish-American writer and TV presenter, Mark Levengood. And next up is Living SMILE Vidya, who is an actress, writer, poet, sketch artist, and founder of Panmai Theatre, a pioneer of trans activism. She has featured in 25 plays and 15 eminent theatre directors. Her autobiography, I Am Vidya, in Tamil, has been made into a film, Nanu Avanalla Avalu, in Kannada, which has won 2 national awards. Mahesh Dattani is a playwright, stage director, screenwriter, and filmmaker. In 1998, Mahesh Dattani won the prestigious Sahitya Academy Award, the highest award for a literary work in the country. His film Mango Souffle, of which he is a writer and director, is based on his play On a Muggy Night in Mumbai, which has been shown in several international film festivals all over the world. And next up, MIRA NAIR, who is an Academy Award nominated director, best known for her visually dense films that pulsate with life. Her debut feature, Salam Bombay, won the Camera d'Or at Cannes, followed by groundbreaking Mississippi Masala, the Golden Globe and Emmy Award winning Hysterical Blindness, and the international hit Monsoon Wedding, for which she was the first woman to win Venice Film Festival's coveted Golden Lion. Nair's recent limited series for BBC Netflix is an adaptation of Vikram Seth's epic tale, A Suitable Boy. In 2012, she was awarded Padma Bhushan, India's highest civilian honor. So welcome to all the panelists, and over to Raga De Silva, who is going to be moderating this particular panel discussion. Raga De Silva, with over 25 years of experience in the creative field, is a co-founder of India's largest international speaker agency, Speaking Minds. Raga is a published author, an avid blogger, and a host of several online shows. She is known advocate in the LGBT space. Welcome, Raga, and welcome all the panelists. And over to you.
Thank you, Sridhar. Wow, I'm in such illustrious company today. Fortunately, as I said, I'm hiding behind this virtual wall, or else I would be fangirling for sure. So thank you, guests, for joining us today. I'm excited that we have such an eclectic and varied panel to discuss books to film adaptations. As you can see, audience, this is indeed a perfect panel to get a diverse view on the subject. So welcome, everyone. Welcome again. And so let's start. Now, this subject, is really very close to my heart. As I'm personally journeying through this experience, my story, a story that I wrote loosely based on my life, is being optioned and by owner, the filmmaker. And I am very nervous, to say the least, because there are certain creative liberties that he has taken. And I'm like, what else is going to be happening there? And over the years, I've watched many books to screen adaptations, and as we all have done, and some I have really loved, really enjoyed. And some I felt that they've not matched to my interpretation of the book. So there's some interesting conversations that I came across when I was researching and about, from some directors and writers who have adapted books into screenplays. And I've found out like the inspiration for choosing the subject is varied. Like Wayne Van, for instance, when he made a version of Amy Tan's 1989 novel, The Joy Luck Club, about 2 generations of Chinese American women, he said that he could relate to this story as it goes back to his roots and it's part of his history. Rosima, when she brought her own interpretation to Jane Austen's 1814 novel, Mansfield Park, she said she could connect to the main female character. So as these directors made clear when I was researching, as I said, adaptation often grows out of personal experience. Therefore, each adaptation can be viewed as a unique interpretation of its director. So I want to explore today, what inspires our guests to choose the subject? How challenging is the creative process in adapting somebody else's work or your own work? How inclusive are we with the writers who have written the original piece? And do we feel that we have just done justice to our own work or to their words? So there are some questions that were, going through my mind, and I'm going to start with JONAS GARDELL. I love your name.
Thank you so much. Well, to me, I've always adapted my own novels and my own theater plays into screenplays, and that's been important because doing that, I was much freer. I actually felt less sort of responsible to the author because it was me. I could do something completely different sometimes because actually, I mean, writing the screenplay, I had sort of the opportunity to do another take on this story, another version of this story. And that instead of just following the book, I tried to see what in this book can I make into a film and sort of accept that it will be different. So to me, the key has been to make my own adaptations and not let other people do them. And the second thing I think is, as a writer, I've always demanded to be a part of the post-production. I've always demanded to be a part of the editing process because it is, when it comes to filmmaking, in the editing process that the film actually is being created.
Interesting. So you wear so many hats, Jonas. You're a novelist, you're a playwright, you're a screenwriter, director, a comedian.
Yeah.
So what came first? What happened to you first?
First came actually drawing. I started as making drawings as an artist, and then I wrote a novel, poems and short stories, and eventually a novel. That came first.
Mahesh, I have questions for you. As I said, I have followed your theater work very closely over the years. Unfortunately, never been to one, but I have lots of my friends who are part of your talent pool. So your film, The Mango Souffle, is based on your own play, right? Written and directed by you, which is on a muggy night in Mumbai. What inspired you to adapt this into a film?
Quite by accident, because I was working on another project. And I was very excited because it's, my first film as a director. And at the last minute, a key source of funding, collapsed, dried up. Story of our lives, right? So the producer said, look, I really want to make a film. Why don't we look at one of your plays and something that we could do in a low budget, no budget kind of situation where I could fund it myself. And the first thing I thought of was On a Muggy Night in Mumbai. I thought that this spoke to me, that I felt the time was right to make this film. Of course, we had Deepa Mehta's Fire, which had made waves, ruffled feathers and things. And I felt this was a good time to do a film, an Indian film, which was unapologetically about gay love.
So do you think was it a difficult process for you? Because both theater and film is so different. They're similar, but so different, right?
I think I made the biggest mistake of actually believing that they're completely different. Because the first thought that comes to an amateur filmmaker, especially someone who's worked in the theater and is working with a play, is that let's open it out, right? Because cinema is about the camera goes everywhere. We follow the action and things. Big mistake, because I feel that when you are working on a play into a movie, what you're really buying is the construction. And there's a reason why the play is set where it is. And there's a certain intensity to the action that comes with that setting. Today in 2021 or 2020, I mean, look at the three most successful films, play to film adaptations. You're looking at The Boys in the Band, you're looking at Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and you're looking at The Father. And all three filmmakers have kept this setting where it is. Look at Boys in the Band. It's a party, it's somebody's birthday, and there are all these friends meeting up, and all their skeletons come out of the closet in that evening. And had they sort of thought, let's open it up and follow all these characters around, I think that would have been a big mistake because the action, the true action that's telling the story has been integrated into that setting. So yes, it is difficult in ways, but I think it's difficult because we make it so. I think ultimately you must have a story and you must want to tell it.
Brilliant, Mahesh. It's like so interesting to listen to you. So living SMILE Vidya, first of all, may I take the liberty of calling you Smiley? Is that all right? Thank you.
It has to be like that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So I love your life story. You've had a very eventful life, obviously, as a transgender person, writing poems, books, staging plays, and being part of films about trans lives. So I'm very intrigued by this. Like, how was it for you growing up as a transgender person and then creating plays around your own personal narrative?
Growing as a trans person, involving in creative process as a trans person, everything is like, without any doubt, 100% hard, worst, horrible, nightmare. Last 15 years I've been doing theater, but couple of only like 2 or 3 plays that I talk about trans or like trans narratives. Recently we did this play Color of Trans, like not recently, 2014. And I think that's the one, because after I studied some course in London, then I was like, I'm a London written, I learned something, I'm gonna express something, I'm gonna explore something. That's how I end up doing this Color of Trans. But it's kind of unfortunate and fortunate that I've been known as like putting yourself like India's first trans theater group and theater performance, like devised, directed, performed by just all by trans and all that. But then also the problem is I also did theater like more than, like I said, and then I've never been like also recognized as theater actor. So it's like both.
Your autobiography in Tamil, I'm Vidya, was turned into a Kannada film. I'm going to try and pronounce it. Nan Avanallu Avalu. Which one?
Nanu
Avanalla Avalu.
Nanu Avanu Allah Avlu. It means like I'm not him, I'm her, something like that. Nanu Avanu Allah Avlu.
Nanu Avanu Allah Alu. Thank you.
Avlu.
So Avlu. I'll try. I'm Konkani, so I'm going to practice my Kannada next time. So anyway, which won 2 national awards, right? And I read that when you watched the premiere of the film, you wept. It brought some back dark memories for you, which had buried deep inside. So I just want to know, how do you feel about, first of all, sharing your story on screen?
Believe me, I said okay because I 100% thought that this is actually not going to happen. If you know South India in 2015, like when I wrote the book, when I wrote this biography, like who write a biography when you're like 25-year-old? Who write an autobiography? Please tell me. But I did it. Why? Because somebody asked me, they said like, your story has to be told, and you're like, I open it, blah, blah, blah. And I believed it. So I just wrote it just for the sake of it. And I did not enjoy writing it. Each night, just one episode, quick, quick, I just wrote. I never even checked for spelling, grammar, nothing. Just one time I write this 2 hours and send like that. It is very horrible. And then like later on 5 years, by then I'm 30, maths. He came and he was like, but can we do this? And then by the time it was translated in many languages, and then the book came, and the book got the best translation Sahitya Academy Award also. I was like, okay, that is okay, cool. But then this director came and he's like, I directed one film and this is my second film. Can I make this autobiography in Kannada? And I was like, yeah, but what are we talking about as in numbers? And he said 15,000. At that time, I could use that money. So I said, okay, fine. You take the film. I know it's not going to happen. Wink, wink, like that only I saw. And then it was, but I have to give full credit to that director because I was not helpful at all. I was such a horrible person. I did not help anything with that film because I want to like stay far away from anything to do with my autobiography slash my life, you know. But then he worked so hard and then he made it. So if that there is two national award, entire credit goes to him.
So you feel okay now about watching your film?
No, 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 no. Every time, I'm sure if I watch the film another 50 times, I know sure even the 51st time, it's going to be hard. It's just not something cool to enjoy because I'm very sensitive person and it just, the trauma is like seriously traumatic and I really don't want to.
You're very courageous to have your story put up on screen, especially if it is so traumatic. And Mira, you've directed such amazing films. I don't even need to go there, but mostly I feel that there's a common thread, the India story. And you seem to be the director who has transformed the highest number of books into screen adaptations. That's what I feel, because there's so many adaptations and that information may not be fully correct. But am I right in saying that your first ever adaptation was based on the book by Pulitzer Prize winner Jhumpa, The Namesake?
No, that was not the first adaptation. But the first adaptation was The Perez Family, which was a beautiful sort of magic realist novel written about the Marielitos, the emigres, the exiles from Cuba who came to Miami on a raft in the 70s. And that was the first film I was offered that happened to be from a book. But I've done several really. Namesake was a very special one. I just backtrack a little, but I grew up in Orissa. I grew up in a very small town in Bhubaneswar, and I grew up, with a very vivid imagination that was really fueled mostly by books and people around me. And so that was the fuel always, to ask myself the question, what will I do, with my life, Anyway, long story, I stumbled into documentary filmmaking, which was like many of you know, it was called Cinema Vidya, which means the cinema of truth, where you actually live with people who you're filming over months at the time, and you see and film their life as it unfolds. And that is what I did for almost 10 years. But that taught me the electricity of ordinary people, the electricity of everyday life. It is completely more powerful and stranger, I think, than any fiction. Anyway, but books and literature were such an important source for me just from the beginning, just to allow me to know and dream. And those days in the beginning when we grew up, the Russian literature, I don't know, Mahesh, if you had this, but we had these pink novels on pink paper, 2 rupees, War and Peace, 2 rupees, like great classics, all of Tolstoy, all of Chekhov, 2 rupees. And that was my learning, is that great fiction, In fact, to the extent that I wanted to know then, it was very little Indian writing in English. I read Dom Moraes, I read Ved Mehta, I read, it was very, very few and far between. And I wondered, really, did we write our own stories? Did we write, why do I always read these names of Tom, Dick, and Harry, and this one and that one? I used to get so excited when I would see like a Rachna or a Rakesh or a Dilip. I would get so excited, but we had not that much fiction then. So my entry into making fiction cinema, untutored, unlearned, I never learned how to make fiction, was through Cinema Vidya, was through life itself, and understanding cinematic structure really through the editing, through the post, through how to create the story even while shooting it, but mostly while cutting it. In fact, Jonas, the one thing you said, I would never allow you in my editing room, because in the editing room is where it's really done, and in the editing room, in the editing room is where you can really create a sizzle that is not. Anyway, so largely the early work especially came from real stories, but the true adaptations of literature and fiction came somewhat later, even though Perez Family was from a book. And anyway, a film is not a book. You cannot be doing page by page, I am so faithful to you, my darling author type of scene. You can't do it because you'll slit your wrists and you'll make a movie that no one will go to, because it's not literary what you're entering into as a medium. It is cinematic, and it must be cinematic, and what is cinematic is the question that all of us, when we get our things adapted, have to ask, and I hate that expression they always use, Mahesh, just open it up. It means zilch. It means nothing. That's not cinema, it's something else. It's about how to treat it, right? So for me, in adaptation, the spirit is vital. The Namesake for me was such a powerful book when I read it. I read it by chance on a plane, just as I had buried a parent unexpectedly. My mother-in-law passed away in New York, and this shocking feeling of the finality of loss in a country that is not your home is what was just, it drove me, like I was just in the depths of melancholy. In that moment, I read The Namesake, and purely by chance. But you see, the book is 3 parts. It's 3 big parts, largely about these parents who come, but then really largely about the son they had, this American boy, And I was not interested so much in the boy. I was interested in the parents from the beginning, because my mother-in-law had passed. They lived with us, and it was an amazing romance of 59 years, my father and mother-in-law. They never said, I love you. They never held hands. They never, they're like that generation. And it was the deepest relationship I had ever seen. And that's how I saw Ashok and Ashima. And then as a result, and I called Suni right away. She had also loved the novel. She completely understood when I asked her, like, let's make it much more about the parents. And he, the boy, is a part of it, but it's not about this kid. It's about the 2 strangers who learn to love each other, and then as soon as they are used to each other in a society that does not even notice them. So that is the point of view that is very important in adaptation. Your point of view, like you can't make a film of every page. You have to, and because it is, in my case, it's real love of the novel. I want to do justice to the spirit of the novel.
Sure.
And I really do. And because of the cinema verite background of learning from documentary, learning from real people, I very much incorporate the author. So Jhumpa's family, mother and father, were the models for Irfan. Irfan pretty much lived with Jhumpa's dad, who was a librarian in a small town. And Jhumpa's mother was kind of like the anchor of our thing, of our family unit, literally. And so many things, I asked her so many things like Jiriji, these beautiful ballads and folk songs and rags. And I love Ritik Ghatak, and I love Satyajit Ray, and they loved them too. And we created a whole mahal, as we say, a whole world. So anyway, and also it was because I knew as a child, I really knew the cinematic key was knowing Calcutta as well as I knew New York. And once I could understand that visual key, because you don't want to make what I call 2+2 films, like, oh, there's an Indian guy, he's now come, he's never seen a big clock in Madison Square Garden, oh my God, that type of naivete not interest me, So it's much more about finding visual metaphors that will ground the cinema of the story. So for me, it was the bridges. It was the bridges of Howrah in Calcutta, and the bridges of Queensboro, and every Washington, all the bridges that we live in New York City. And both cities are like full of graffiti of politics and art. Everywhere there's art, both cities. And once I understood that I would use the bridges in that cinematic way to literally go into another space, because that is the amazing thing about cinema, unlike literature. Literature can spend pages describing that, but it doesn't have that subliminal connection that cinema can give you.
Sure.
And so once I got that visual binding, that's a very important way, for me at least, to enter the zone of adaptation.
Beautiful. I just love it. I could just listen to you for hours, I think, and I'm sure so would the others. Smiley, so one question is that, one of the conditions that you had, right, to play your character, that you wanted your character to be played by a trans woman.
Yeah.
The director tried very hard to find someone, and ultimately they went with Sanchari Vijay.
Sanchari Vidya, yeah.
What was your initial reaction to this? What were your thoughts on like a non-trans actor playing a trans role?
First of all, I was this person from the beginning, the representation of trans community in the cinema. I was very strong that it has to be on screen, off screen, there has to be a trans representation. But then the difficulty was for him that this film was started in 2010 or 12 or something like that, but it took like almost 3 years. And he could not keep up with the same actor, and then there was other issues. We couldn't find the right person for that, and then towards the end, at some point, he has to really go with it. But at least what I'm really glad was that Sanchari Vijay did not try to be a trans person, but more like he tried to be and find himself as a woman, stuck in a male body. And he did not, stereotype anything. He did not, like exaggerate anything. That was one wonderful thing. There are many films that cis male performing as a trans is like, I kind of also questioning that, like being an actor also, I understand you want to do like intense roles and everything, but I'm not happy when a cis person find being a trans on screen is a tool to express your talent as an actor, and then you get recognition. Somewhere I'm very, very and then at the end of the day, you also steal a job. But actually, just so you know, actually the actor Sanchar Vijay actually recently passed away, and I want to may his soul rest in peace, and I want to give my condolence to all his family, friends, and his fans. He's actually a budding actor now, and then it's really unfortunate.
Sure, condolences from all of us as well to his family. So you've been acting in several plays that have been staged across Tamil Nadu, right? So what motivates you as a writer and as an actor?
From my childhood, I used to be such a drama queen. And when there is nobody in my home, I always dress up as a woman, drape saris and wearing my dress. And then I just do like I act myself as a, this horrible stepmother or this, mother-in-law. And then I be myself as a daughter-in-law and I do drama. Oh, nahi chodo, like that. All that do. I think that's where I think somewhere acting to theater is where I find my destiny as a trans woman, I think. So it was not because I'm a trans and I want to tell a story. I think it's because I want to be an actress, and that's why I realized that I'm an actress, I'm a woman, and then I'm here. It's always my dream to give a magazine interview like as an actress, oh, and like this drama. Oh, my best friend is my teddy bear, my dog is my best friend. I would have been doctor if it's an accent, I become an actress, like all those things. That was my dream. And then I wanted to be in cinema. But then as I grew up, I saw like theater has more space and more acceptance. And I find my place. And being on stage is where I feel like this one giant tree where I get all the power, in the best possible way. And I've never seen myself as a writer. That's like, first of all, that's why I have to thank to being surrounded by these best writers. And then I'm like, just because I wrote one stupid out of it, and I'm like, I'm also get to sit with them. I'm like, okay, but I don't see myself really in a writer. But when it happens, like you have to tell these stories, and it has sometimes you feel this, I have to speak. It's more like a therapy, I think, that you have to write.
May I suggest, Smiley, if I may, that you should write a story about that actress, that infantilizing, how they made actresses babies. Like my favorite color is, and if you wrote it as that kind of actress, and now the actor that you are, the trans issue is just part of you, so it's not about that, but it would be really interesting to see you explode the lid of this infantilizing of women as actors, because we all know it. It's exactly like that. And literally they'll ask the girls, Marissa Tomei, Frances McDormand, really great actors who are full-fledged human, activists in many, they'll say to them, so what is your favorite color?
Yeah.
Till today. And it would be really nice if you could tell it from your point of view.
I just wanted to say thank to because it's like surreal to have a dialogue with her, because I remember when I was like, when I was doing my UG and PG, UG was my escape was reading, and PG is like watching like alternate movies. By the time you don't get to see monsoon weddings or Salam Bambi in like every silver screen. So you have to find the DVD and then you watch in TV and then you feel I'm an intellectual, like you go there.
God,
But when
hope it's fun too, though.
when I first time been to in Pune, I used to think like I remember those part when in Salam Bambi where this area comes, this sex business part comes. I used to I used to connect with myself. I used to live in a kind of place like the city post in Pune, and I used to see like I wish like now Mira saw me and like make the film in me like that, like I was always a drama queen. I could not help.
So, Jonas, your novel Don't Ever Wipe Tears with Gloves was adapted into a 3-episode series. Can you elaborate on this, please?
Don't Ever Wipe Tears Without Gloves. It's a story about the history of AIDS in Stockholm and Sweden. When it comes to gay stories and gay film and gay TV, the history we get is usually the history of America and USA, and we don't get the other stories. Therefore, I think it's wonderful. That I'm invited to be part of this panel in a queer film festival in Mumbai. I think that's lovely. Just because we need to hear everybody's stories. And when it comes to the AIDS years in Sweden, it was quite different from what happened in New York and San Francisco in America, and therefore it was untold because when it came to the gay men dying of AIDS, the Swedish society, which is used to be like a liberal society, a very, very tolerant society, it reacted with panic. We had politicians and we had doctors that demanded that there would be concentration camps for all the HIV positive, that every HIV positive should be tattooed with a mark on their arms that people should know, just like the Germans in Nazi Germany. I had like 4 of my closest friends that committed suicide in a period of like 9 months when they found out they were HIV positive. And I had friends, when they died, the family didn't allow their lovers or their gay friends to come attend to the funeral. And this story was, for 30 years, we didn't tell our story. We continued this sort of lie about Sweden being this tolerant country, this liberal country. And therefore, to me, it was like the most important thing I could do with me when I had the platform of being a writer, but also being a successful writer, because the gay people, the gay persons that died of AIDS, they had such short lives. And people despised them, people were afraid of them, people thought they were not worth getting to know. And I wanted them to get to know these people and to love these people and to understand that not getting to know them back then, treating them so badly. First, I had problem financing the television series because they all thought it was a marvelous screenplay, a marvelous script, but as one managed, one of the tops in the Swedish television said, whoever wants to see faggots die in AIDS, what's the interest? So therefore, I also not only had to be correct, I also had to write a love story that was so irresistible that everybody fell in love with my main characters. And so I did it, and we did. This story is now was voted one of the 3 most important cultural events ever in Sweden for 150 years. To take these subcultural subjects and make them mainstream, to understand that our story is actually stories worth telling, and now, for the first time in fucking world history, we have the platform and we have the opportunities to do that, to tell these stories and to show them all over the world. I think that is such a responsibility to take.
Thank you for bringing such beautiful stories then. But then, do you believe that it was successfully translated onto the screen adaptation?
Yes, of course, since
your energy
was a part of the editing.
Mira, that was for you.
Yeah.
I wish I had seen it so I could Give you my
Yeah.
thanks.
And also this, I mean, and this also a way, don't everyone chase without gloves is also a wonderful example that art actually can change society, because it changed society. It changed. They even had it up in the parliament to make an official excuse from the Swedish government to the gay population of Sweden.
Mahesh, I'm just going to ask you one question, how important is it for, more LGBTQIA plus focused books and films to come out, in order to change mindset, just as Jonas just said to us, overseas, yes. What about in India?
Well, I think I can completely empathize with Smiley's story that she wrote her autobiography, but the way it was handled was not very conducive to her personally or to the LGBTQ cause. I think that's three things we need to look at. One is that we need more LGBTQIA people involved in the arts. Number two is that we need stories that concern LGBTQIA. Three is that we need LGBTQIA characters in films that are not talking about LGBTQIA. Like, Mira said, it would be great to hear Smiley's, take on the whole sort of construction of the uber feminine actress and kids and things. And the little bit that she did, you could see she has a very unique take on this, right? So I think it's hugely important that we also have, characters that are there because they're a part of a bigger story, that the accent doesn't have to be on the queer person, but the accent is on the wonderful queer nature of storytelling. If you look at it, all unique stories are queer in that sense. So I think we need to celebrate that, and we owe it to the world, not to us. It's not just us as LGBTQIA people who need to tell stories, but I think the world needs to listen to them. And there are millions of stories being told, waiting to be told, because even LGBTQIA is such a big umbrella that within that, there are millions and millions of stories that can come out. So I think it's hugely important. The question you asked is a very important one.
And Mahesh, also, we were referring to it earlier about mainstreaming, right? In cinema, like we said, when you watch cinema, we're not mainstream. So it is an LGBTQIA story. It doesn't have to be like that. I'd love to see Hindi in our Bollywood cinema or theater to basically have, say, two people coming in, walking in, and mom says, hey, what's your partner doing today? And why are you not off to the theater?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like, oh, you brought your lesbian partner home. Like, I mean,
yes,
that dramatization of our LGBTQ, and that I think at some point, hopefully, we will together change that narrative.
Will happen, yeah.
Because you see a lot of it, even from London, we watch a lot of our Netflix shows and OTT on different platforms. And what I end up watching is the same thing. There is new wave, of course, in India. There is a whole lot of now, content available, which wasn't there earlier, which is fantastic. But some of the facts are so wrong, and the way they narrate those facts are so wrong. It's so over the top, and it's so, somebody used the word outlandish. So it's not even real. So people are not relating to us because they're thinking, oh, them, they, them, right? So
That's
I think
right.
that I think we have to together change that they, them as well. So I have a question for you. Do you prefer directing your own written, work, or do you prefer someone else's writing and directing that?
As a theater director, I prefer directing somebody else's work rather than my own. And I'm very happy when other directors want to direct my plays. But I think film is a director's medium, number one. And I think the director needs to own the story. So, you know, you really need, it's a dance between the writer and the director and ultimately the actor and everyone, the DOP and etc. That unless you have, as a writer, you have the plasticity to have this kind of reshaping and remolding of your creativity through the lens of the director, I don't think writing for film is a good idea, completely from a writer's selfish perspective, right? But of course, there are writers who are perfectly happy to write and then hand it over. So it depends on the person's makeup, right? Jonas was very, very clear that, you know, he wants to direct because then he has the privilege of being in the editing room, which the writer doesn't have that privilege, right? Whereas Mira may be more motivated by the stories around her and the world around her. She said that her story lies in the truth of the world because that's how she began with documentaries, right? So we're all different people and we all have different itches to scratch, I think. And I think it's very important that we scratch our itch, you know.
I love it. So Mahesh, what are the typical challenges you face, you know, when you have to write for theatre versus films?
I think writing for theatre is far more demanding because it's very, very crafty. And I think if you have a great story to tell, writing for film is a breeze because you are telling the story through pictures and with the simplest spoken lines. Whereas in the theatre, all dialogue is heightened, and how you heighten the dialogue is part of your craft. Whereas there is no room for heightened dialogue in cinema. Less is more. You know, as a medium, it is larger than life. The medium itself blows up life. So, which means that the story and the acting and the art have to be smaller than life because it gets magnified so much. Whereas with theatre, it's the opposite.
So, theatre versus films, I'm going to ask you to choose one love.
Well, I think my media is definitely theatre. But having said that, is it because I know the language so well that it's so much in my blood? There's something about the medium, the lightness, the immediacy of theatre, which is very appealing to me.
Hi, Mira. So my next question is, what inspired you to choose A Suitable Boy to turn, you know, it into your latest web series?
I have loved the novel since it was written, and I have actually, you know, just thought I was too young at that time to make a series about it. And many other people tried. But it's a very ambitious mega epic of a novel. It became, I heard that they were making a series, you know, about it, that was already adapted by Andrew Davies. I said, you know, I have got to direct it, you know, if it is coming in any avatar, I would like to see if I could throw my sari in the ring, as I put it to them. And they were only too delighted and then asked me to come on. So I entered a state of the novel, which I had loved, already having been adapted into an 8-hour series, and quite beautifully adapted. But for me, it was a little bit more Pride and Prejudice, you know, like, will she marry this guy or that guy? And it was less about the political context of the time. And Vikram was, of course, a brilliant writer, but also prescient, you know, in the way he used the Babri Masjid episode and all the things that were happening in India in the 1990s. That, plus the fact that the book is based on my most favorite period of India, which is 1950, which is when India was free, but trying to find its own self and its voice. Just like the heroine of A Suitable Boy, which is Lata, who is supposed to do her family's bidding, but is trying to find her own voice. So that is the parallel that I wanted to bring to the adaptation, that Lata was India and India was finding itself, you know. But also one of the core things in the novel is the Hindu-Muslim conflict, that the seed that is sown. For me, that was a vital element that had to be reintegrated, and which Andrew was very happy and to integrate, and Vikram and I quite carefully worked that back in. So for me, it was, even though in a beloved way, it was set when in the year my parents married, it was set in that time that I wished I had been born in. But at the same time, I wanted to have it be very accessible to today, to the young of today, frankly, to remember what India was, which was a syncretic universe of great old friendships that happened to be between Hindus and Muslims. We didn't think that way before. And all even the cultural, like the music is a great, I love, and Vikram loves even more,
So how did you bring in the LGBT angle, and what was your reaction to the entire piece on the LGBT when you read about it and then you had to adapt it?
I think Vikram said, really deeply understands and wrote in The Suitable Boy this, the depth of this kind of unconditional love, friendship between Firoz and Maan. And for me, it encompassed all kinds of love. And I was very determined to honor that, that relationship, even though, again, we had very little time to make everything unfold in all its nuance and complexity. But for me, the extraordinary friendship and love between Maan and Firoz was something I wanted to, with every frame, enrich. And because those are friendships I've known and loved as much, and very rarely are seen on any kind of story or cinema, certainly without judgment, and without explanation. And Vikram, gave it to us in the story. You can choose to bypass it, or you can choose to really honor it and love it the way I hope I did. Even though I could have, like we had to do a lot in very little time, but I think that you feel this extraordinary drama of their friendship and the jealousies and also the and how the fathers, eventually bring the sons back together. It's a beautiful, beautiful quartet that Vikram wrote, and I wanted to do that justice. And it's and life is about this, life is about people who all sorts of love, but it is love.
Thank you for honoring that message. So I have a question. What was Vikram Seth's reaction when he watched the web series?
Vikram was pretty involved with it in a beautiful and detailed way right from the beginning. So it's not like you just open the curtain on Vikram and show him the film. So Vikram was beautifully involved for the important things, like the script, like the casting also. Once I found who I wanted to play each one, then Vikram had to see, and also, the BBC had to see. So this is all a big game operation. It's not a singular act by any means. And so, yeah, Vikram was happily involved. And once, he wrote me a beautiful poem. He wanted it to be inside the credits, but we didn't do that. I mean, but it's there, it's beautiful. And he said, thank you. He said, thank you.
How lovely. So Mira, what is that one advice you would like to give our young screenwriters or directors, who want to adapt books into screenplays?
I think that young directors, writers have to have a point of view about adaptation, what they are doing and why, and come to their own vision of the piece that they are adapting. That's very important to steer the ship. And my instinct is also to embrace the author big time of the piece. And Andrew Davies used to joke and say, I prefer my authors dead. so he could do what he wanted. But I like them. I've seen to like them alive as well. And so I always thoda embrace laga ke, not so that what even draws you to adaptation, to that novel, is something that includes the author's spirit as well.
It's so wonderful to hear this coming from you, Mira, because like I said, my book is being adapted, and I'm so nervous because, first time, right? So that you're not going to get that kind of, maybe, I don't know the word, respect. You just, there's going to be creative liberties taken, and you just can't, you just sit back and just watch it happen. And you just hope and pray that they'll do justice to your work, right?
I feel like that it is another medium, actually directing, making a film of a book or whatever. That is the other medium that is, of course, united with the story, but not, but it has to be used as the medium. You cannot be faithful to exactly the written page, and you should not be. You should be faithful to the spirit of it, but not to the vocabulary of it, because the vocabulary of cinema is a different one. And you must use it to make the spirit of the story that you essentially wrote come alive. I hope that balance can be achieved. So don't be nervous, but enter the journey. And if you're in good hands with the director, there's nothing like it.
Fantastic. I remember watching The Namesake when I lived in New Zealand. And I remember coming out, because I read quite a bit as well, and I'd read the book and I'd loved the book. And I had said to myself, this book I'm never going to watch on screen, because you have your own interpretation of a particular book. But when the movie came out and I was in New Zealand, I watched it, I came out thinking, oh my God. And I went and watched that three more times, because it spoke to me, and that was really, and I took my friends along. The second time I went, I took my friends along, and then I took my mother along, who was visiting. I said, we must watch this, because we're all readers. And it left quite an impact, because we were living an immigrant life, and we could relate to it in so many ways. So I think for me, even though it was a little different than the book, but it was an interpretation of my own, in my own head, it did justice to it and more. So I think that to me is cinema, where, where there is a, like a combination of the author, the writer, and the director coming together, and you come out, and the audience at the end of the day, the audience has to feel good about it, right? And we did. So thank you for all the cinema that you've given to us. Beautiful cinema.
Thank you. And also, just to say that Suneet Arapurwala, who's the writer of it, who adapted into the screenplay, basically, who wrote the screenplay, is such a big part of that, the sort of focus we had, all three of us, into making The Namesake.
Now, I'm just going to go to Jonas Gardell and ask him my final question for the day. So you are out and proud gay man, living with your husband, and also very renowned author, as we know. So how does your gayness inform your work? Are there any LGBTQ stories coming out from you anymore?
Yes, they are coming out more and more. For the longest time, I'm 58 years old now, and I've been out and proud since I was 15, so that's almost 40 years. And when my first novel came out in 1985, the critiques actually wrote that they almost vomited when they read it, since it was a gay love story. It was really, really touchy for them. And now, when I write my novels, they're mainstream. I mean, they're bestsellers in Sweden. And therefore, I do think I have a responsibility to lift these topics, since I do know it will sell. It will cause attention. And therefore, I think, being 58 now, I'm thinking about my legacy, because in the longest run, as a gay man, you thought your history wasn't supposed to be told. It's just been a short period now that we understood that our story is a story that is both worth telling and both worth listening to. So therefore now I'm writing a novel, two novels about the Swedish sort of gay history. My new novel takes place in the 19th century with the first gay activists in 1850 in Sweden. And it goes towards the first Pride parade in Sweden 50 years ago. And those stories, no one has told before. And so therefore, I think I'm the right person to do it.
So you've been a part of the changing narrative, basically. You have basically changed the narrative, isn't it?
Actually, I have. I was the first open public figure in Sweden. I was sort of Mr. Gay. me and my husband, we called like Homo Royals. So of course, yeah, we were part of, changing the direction of the wind. By being open and by continuously telling your story, people will start to listen and understand that this is not only telling gay stories, but, a story about being human.
So mainstreaming is such an important thing, and it's something that I think we all want to feel mainstream, right? Whether it is a conversation, whether it is in a workplace, and through movies and books, this is the best way to mainstream us. And I'm so pleased to know that we have people like you, filmmakers, writers, artists who are actually helping changing the narrative. As I say, we change the narrative one story at a time. So thank you so much, Jonas. Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, audience. It's been a wonderful interaction, a lot of food for thought. So I've learned so much today from this interaction. I hope our audience has learned as much, Sridhar. So let me thank Mira Nair, Mahesh Dattani, JONAS GARDELL, SMILE. Thank you, Kashish International Film Festival. And we look forward to many more interactions.
Thank you so much, Raga, for facilitating this amazing conversation on books to screen. And thank you so much, JONAS GARDELL, for joining this panel discussion. Thank you, SMILE VIDYA, Mahesh Dattani, and of course, Mira Nair, for being part of this panel discussion and contributing with your experiences and expertise. This particular panel discussion is supported by the Consulate General of Sweden. And if you have any comments or questions for any of the panelists, please put it in the comment box and I'll make sure they see that and respond to you. Thank you to each one of you, and please stay tuned to Kashish Updates.